mean, just steps into it with every ounce of his body. Perfect right hand. So the fact that Jake Paul wants to fight that guy, hey, I'll watch. I'm going to watch.
Yesterday, I said that you should coach Joshua, and he agreed. He liked the idea. Joshua, Mike Tyson will coach him.
Coach, he's been there, seen it, he's done it all.
I think that'd be good.
No sparring, though. No sparring.
What advice would you give to somebody like AJ?
That he has a lot of talent and not to get discouraged. He only loses when he quits. When you quit, all the doors of opportunities close. You know what I mean? You have to be game and then for the don't get discouraged if you lose. Listen, you just lost. You may have got $30 million.
Joe Rogan reacts to Anthony Joshua, reportedly training with Mike Tyson, saying it shows how seriously AJ is preparing for the Jake Paul fight. Rogan explains that if Joshua enters with that level of training, he can quickly overwhelm Jake due to the size gap and experience difference. He adds that Jake has never faced a truly serious heavyweight boxer before, so this matchup puts him in a situation he has never handled.
You know, there's not a chance that Anthony Joshua is not going to just lose the weight beforehand. He's not going to come in drained. What he's going to do is just do extra cardio, and that's just going to make him more dangerous. He's going to be terrifying, and he's going to have a lot to prove. He's going to be very angry that Jake Paul wants to fight him.
Jake talks about shocking the world and inspiring the next generation, but even while he speaks, his tone reveals how he knows the size difference is on another level. He jokes about needing to look upward just to make eye contact with Joshua, yet he still tries to maintain the same energy he always uses before big events. He wants people to believe that confidence alone can carry him through a match with a giant who has held major belts and smashed through real opponents. Jake tries to spin the moment by saying that taking on someone this big is the inspiration young fighters need because stepping up with courage shows ambition. Still, the gap between ambition and the truth inside a ring is massive, especially when the opponent is a heavyweight with proven power.
Fight of the year, you, Anthony Joshua, how we doing?
Dude, never been better. This is what I dreamed of. This is what I manifested into reality. I'm here to shock the world, inspire the next generation. We're in the Heat arena. I'm a big Heat fan. Miami's on fire. This is my first pro fight, was in Miami against Gibb. I'm bringing that same energy here. First round KO.
And the Schmo interviewed you there. When you fought Gibb, it was on Fight TV. We've been with you along the way. Not very many times you're looking up at a face-off. So what did you make of looking up for one of the very first times at a face-off right here?
Just looking up at Daddy there and just seeing, you know, how big he is, and just my eyes were kind of going into his nipples and stuff, which I kind of liked. And then basically I was just like, whoa, he's big in that. And then, yeah, I can't believe how tall he is.
Is this chain really on the line for the winner?
I don't know if it's confirmed, but I mean, I'm down. But he has to put something up, too. There has to be something in it for me.
You say this is the biggest upset that's going to be in boxing history, right up there with 42-1 with Buster Douglas.
Yep.
What is the headline going to be when you knock this guy out and he's laying on the canvas?
Holy.
The size comparison becomes a major discussion point because Jake has always been known as a solid, strong figure in his own divisions. Yet, when Oladipo speaks, he calls this matchup a proper David versus Goliath moment. Joshua does not just stand taller, he carries a frame that has been built through years of heavyweight training and conditioning, and this makes the visual difference almost shocking when both are seen side by side. Even though Jake has put on weight and muscle, he simply does not match the natural frame of a heavyweight who has been battling men of similar size for years. Oladipo explains that the public will witness a rare clash where a fighter from a smaller background takes on a man who looks like he came out of a different category entirely.
See Jake Paul versus AJ as though Jake Paul is the bigger in this equation. Not for me. Maybe for MVP, Nikisa, Jake Paul, but not for me. I've kind of marked it or titled it David versus Goliath just because of the size difference. Like, Jake Paul's a big guy. He is. He's 6'1", 220, probably fights around, the 200-pound mark. AJ is an enormous guy. Like, he's a big, big unit. And I think Jake realized that when they came face to face. I don't know if that's the first time they've ever come that close. I'm sure they've met behind the scenes. But I think there was a realization from Jake Paul, like, fuck, this is a big dude. It's a very, very big dude who isn't coming to play. Like, there was no play with AJ. That was a press conference that almost sounded like AJ versus someone in the top 10, where AJ's taking it seriously. He's answering the questions direct that Ariel's throwing him. There was no yeah, we're here to kind of fuck around. This is going to be easy. Give me my money. Let me run back to the UK. This was AJ's like, no, we're taking this seriously. And that ain't a good thing for Jake Paul. It isn't. And AJ is that guy anyway. Like, I would never doubt that AJ would take this seriously. But for Jake Paul, I do wonder if realization is kicking in, or maybe he is just that delusional where he doesn't care. I do, and I've been sort of corrected by a few people who maybe know better, but I do think the Americans don't credit or rate AJ. I do think there's a bit of that. I remember when AJ did the rounds prior to the Ruiz fight, and there were a few people like, yeah, you're not that good. This was prior to him getting beat by Ruiz.
The talk around this matchup begins with people calling it entertainment or a staged show, but the reaction from those who know boxing says otherwise, because Anthony Joshua carries a mindset that does not fit into any plan where things are arranged. His training clips show a heavyweight who is preparing to go inside the ring with clear purpose and no sense of holding back, because this fight is not a showpiece for him. He has spent his career facing real punchers, real contenders, and real pressure, so he can't enter a ring thinking about putting on a small performance for cameras. On the other side, Jake continues to push a narrative that this event is meant to shock the world, but even then, the difference in reality stands tall. Joshua looks ready to walk in with force and finish every doubt that people keep repeating.
Oh, next month, that is for money, as opposed to boxing. And boxing merit is Anthony Joshua against Jake Paul. How much are the boundaries of safety, Frank, being pushed for entertainment purposes here?
No, look, obviously, we are in a dangerous sport. We have to accept that. And obviously, the people looking after Jake Paul, if I was managing or promoting Jake Paul, would I say this is the right move for Jake Paul? Probably not, being completely honest with you. But he's put himself in a position, was Jake Paul Mike Tyson a sensible thing to do? To a 58-year-old man or 60, I'm not sure what Mike is, but was that sensible? Probably not. And I would have said that at the time, but it's the world we live in now. And the reality is a lot of people are going to watch it, but we also at the same time have to make the sport as safe as possible and put everything in place around it to ensure that. And that's what the commission, the Florida State Athletic Commission, will be doing, as will the promoters of the event.
So, I mean, Frank, not to finish on too much of a negative, but it begs the question, if Anthony Joshua ends up inflicting considerable damage on Jake Paul, how much does that reflect on you and Matchroom?
I think we go into the fight. We got offered a proposition to do this fight. Anthony Joshua accepted it. Jake Paul's put himself in a position to take that fight, and that's the reality, Jake Paul. But we all want everything we do in this sport. We want to make it as safe as we possibly can, but we have to accept the risks attached to it.
And this is risky, isn't it?
Yeah, look, it is risky. I think Jake Paul's crazy. I think he's delusional. But respect to him for doing it, and he's getting a load of money.
And Frank, just to silence all the doubters here, a lot of people saying this can't be real, Anthony Joshua going in there, it must be an exhibition, or Anthony Joshua's it's going to be choreographed and Anthony's going to carry him through a couple of rounds. I know Anthony Joshua, just to silence all those doubters, he's going to go in there to do a job, right?
When Ben Shalom gives his opinion, he expresses clear confusion about how such a match even came together, because the difference in divisions, levels, experience, and risks is too wide. He questions the logic behind putting a man with heavyweight power against someone who is still building his career through smaller matchups. He suggests that this event feels like it exists outside the usual rules of matchmaking, where fighters are built and guided slowly toward bigger competition. In his view, the sport has structure, but this type of pairing does not fit into any normal pattern, which makes him feel the fight carries strange energy. He wonders what the goal is because Jake faces a man who can hurt him in ways he has never felt and who has faced pressure that Jake cannot imagine.
Look, it's not boxing, so I credit to them and what they're earning and everything around that, and it's almost quite unbelievable that it's happening. But what can I comment on? Like, I'm a boxing promoter. You're talking about a YouTube cruiserweight fight. It doesn't make sense to me. I've got no comment on it, but it's an unbelievable spectacle, and they're going to make a lot of money. But yeah, I'm not the person to ask about that fight.
Chael Sonnen speaks with his typical direct style and says people keep doubting whether the fight will actually happen, but he understands how committed Jake is to making it real. He jokes that Jake would try to call out AJ even on the day of the fight if necessary, but he reminds everyone that this is not how the business operates. Chael explains that Jake is paying for almost everything from press events to promotional activity because he is not only the fighter, he is also the promoter. That means he carries the financial pressure and cannot simply change things last minute or surprise people with sudden calls. Sonnen stresses that Jake created this entire path for himself, and that comes with responsibility because when you run the show, your money, time, and reputation are on the line.
This fight will not happen. Jake Paul will call off the day of the fight if he has to. But he will not fight Anthony Joshua. Now, that's all fine. That stuff is all fine. It's just, it never goes away. There's no ability to make that stop. There's nothing you can do. There's always the new fan coming in. There's always the new fan, and there's a piece of the psychology, which is always talking about themselves. If they ever, hey, well, you think this guy would take this fight? It's only on a week's notice. Whatever that answer is, they're telling you what they would do. Do you think this guy would fight this guy? No way. He'd get his ass kicked. So they're telling you about themselves. They're letting you know that they would not take a fight that they didn't know that they were going to win. When the person says, mark my words, Jake Paul will pull out of this fight, he might even do it the day of. Pull out of the fight to who? It's his fight. Who is this mystery person? Did you write? Because I know this is a big category. I just read one guy that said this. But I'm talking to a lot of you, aren't I? A lot of you believe that Jake Paul is going to pull out of that fight. Might even do it the day of, correct? Correct? Okay. Who would he pull out to? He is the promoter. Who would he call? Does he send an email to himself? Does he send a text message to himself? Does he schedule a meeting, come in and sit down, across the table and look in the eye himself?
Eddie Hearn does not hold back when he gives his view on the matchup because he speaks from years of working with major champions. He explains that there is no realistic path for Jake to survive heavy shots from Anthony Joshua because the weight of those punches comes from experience, strength, and natural heavyweight power. Eddie gives a clear picture of what happens when a heavyweight with precision lands clean on someone who is not built to take that type of impact. In his eyes, the fight ends in an instant if AJ connects on the chin, because the shock from a heavyweight strike is something Jake has never prepared for. Eddie respects Jake's ambition, but also warns that ambition cannot change science and nature. The moment Jake steps into the ring, he will face power that cannot be matched with confidence or loud statements.
You're quoted on record saying that you and AJ must retire if Jake Paul wins on December 19th. Stand by that?
Yeah, I do. I mean, oh, I suppose so. Shit, yeah. Look, I don't see a world where Jake Paul wins this fight. I know that boxing's boxing. I mean, what is it? Roy Jones came out this morning and said Jake Paul can win this fight.
Teddy Atlas as well.
Teddy Atlas? Mm-hmm. Okay. All right, now I'm a bit worried. I won't retire. AJ should retire if he loses, no.
Sorry.
No, I see AJ winning this fight with ease, comprehensively, destructively, violently, and I don't see a world where Jake Paul is competitive in the fight, let alone win the fight. But luckily, AJ's not preparing in a way that he just thinks it's a joke. He's preparing for Jake Paul like he's a world title contender. Yes, it's been a little bit of a shorter camp. Yes, we've got to make weight this time around, but it doesn't matter. We should just slide through this guy and bash him up and beat him up, and we should do it early doors.
Just lastly, you said as well that you told Nikisa that he was weighing 290 when you were negotiating. What impact did that have? Did you feel like they would have gone even lower if they knew he was weighing 265?
No, I mean, I don't think that when you're negotiating on a weight, there's not one promoter in the world that would tell the truth about what the weight of the fighter was, and Nikisa knows that anyway. So wasn't like we were being clever, but they wanted him to come to 240. And it's just, don't forget, AJ's never made weight before. So all of a sudden, he's tried, he'd been in camp for, 2 or 3 weeks. And he's probably sitting at, 260, 265. And it's like, you got to make 245. It's 20 pounds.
Joey Knight examines the financial side and says Jake will earn a huge amount from this event because the attraction level is massive. But he also warns that money does not protect anyone from the physical consequences of facing a heavyweight. He explains that if AJ delivers real damage, the cost will be higher than any check Jake receives, because recovery takes time and sometimes requires a career change. Joey highlights how risky it is for a fighter to step into an environment where the opponent holds too much natural size and force. He respects Jake's courage for taking the fight, but questions the long-term result, because if AJ hurts him, the money cannot reverse what happens inside the ring.
A lot of cash and can still have a serious chance of going on to earn even more paydays. Whereas the damage that it could do to his body could be irreversible for that opportunity to earn money in a boxing career going forward. So is this the retirement bag? Or do you actually think you can win? Because I read a study recently, and I believe it said something along the lines of men overemphasize or overcalculate their ability to fight by about 500 times. And I'm saying Jake Paul would probably need to be 500 times better to stand a chance against Anthony Joshua. And I can't get how he doesn't already know this. Surely he has sparred with heavyweights. Surely the recent sparring that he had with the likes of Shakur Stevenson and with the likes of Ray Ford, amongst others, Badu Jack, surely that would have taught you that there are levels to boxing. And if these small guys are able to show you things that you had no idea that you were vulnerable to in a boxing ring, what happens when someone who hits 4, 5, 6 times as hard as that does the exact same thing to you and lands it on your chin? The whole reason of why I know where I am in the influencer boxing scene, in the misfit scene, is because of the level that I have sparred at. I've sparred boys that have gone on to box for world titles. I've sparred with English champions and I've sparred with loads of Southern area champions. And doing that enabled me to understand what level I can reach in boxing and what level I can't reach. And some people might say, well, Jake Paul's clearly more ambitious than you. There's no reason for him to be, because he's not a better pound-for-pound boxer than me. So there really is no reason. And that really does make me think that one of two things have happened. Jake Paul has never, ever had serious elite sparring anywhere near this weight division, or he's had it, he knows, and he just doesn't give a fuck. Maybe it's the prior. Maybe he genuinely believes that he can beat Anthony Joshua. Maybe he's looked at the fact that Anthony Joshua has looked chinny, I was about to say recently, but to be honest, pretty much from the start of his career. From the start of his career, he has shown that he does not have good powers of recovery. Once you hit Anthony Joshua, he does seem to stay hit. And speaking of being hit, he can be hit fairly easily.
Liam Goff reacts to the list of sparring partners Jake has brought into camp and calls it an insane lineup. He says this shows how Jake is trying to prepare for heavyweight pressure by surrounding himself with fighters who carry serious size and strength. Jake even claims he has been smashing these sparring partners, which creates another layer of hype. But Liam reminds everyone that sparring and real fights are not the same because sparring is controlled and managed. He explains that even if Jake performs well in training, it will never match what he feels when a real heavyweight champion stands in front of him with full power and full intention. Still, Liam gives credit to Jake for stepping up to such strong partners in camp, because it means he is putting in real work.
My spar, I'm not. Well, who are you sparring though? You're saying you're knocking them out, you're trashing them, this, that, the other. But who are these people? You know, are they top level fighters? Because if you're, sparring the likes of hypothetically Devin Haney and people like that, and you're trashing them in sparring, it's very impressive. If you're trashing some area level fighter in sparring and bragging about that, that just screams out bully to me. That doesn't scream out, anything to write home about. That just screams out, I'm beating some overmatched guy in sparring. Yeah, ain't I great? This right here, I would imagine that they're definitely going to be holding back. I don't think it's going to help Jake Paul anyway, but I really want to talk about Okolie being in there, because at the end of the day, right, sparring is sparring, and, you see fighters go into different gyms, but when someone is, and I think Okolie even offered to help Jake Paul spar as well in the run-up to this fight, and obviously Okolie has his own fight on December 19th, the same day actually, funny enough, same day, different continents, but same day. I find it strange because although you give Jake Paul no sniff of a prayer in this fight, at the end of the day, Okolie is still in the camp and he is trying to help Jake Paul. Now, Lawrence Okoli was very close. In fact, he was managed by Anthony Joshua very early on in his career, very early on, from pretty much up until he left Matchroom, I think. He was a 258 management fighter. Him and Okoli were like that. In fact, if you remember very, very early on in Lawrence Okoli's career, on the Sky days, and you're talking maybe his first, second, third pro fight, the way Sky were kind of marketing him and the kind of cringe stuff they were getting him to say, and it was cringe as hell, because Okoli is humorous, we know now. Back then in the Sky days, good lord, it was awful how cringe it was, some of the things they had him saying, you know.
That's it for today's video. Stay tuned until next time.